All right, welcome back, folks. Sorry about the sound. I had my stuff turned up a little bit too loud there for a second. All right, so let's go into some individual issues now. I was talking about some of that stuff in the video this week, and I was talking about some different issues. Let's go first to ACB. We've seen a real sell-off in ACB in the last, 3 sessions now. Let's pull up the chart and take a look at it. After a few days of a rally, there was one day where we got a big $1 something move, but since then kind of been selling off. Let's look at the 20-day here, and that kind of tells the picture on ACB here. We're kind of right back to where we were about a week ago, right? Exactly where we were a week ago. Let me back it up a little bit further here. So here's the yearly, and you can see on the yearly, things look a lot rosier. Started 2019 around the $5 mark. However, in October, we got up to $12.50. But since that beginning of the year, we've had this big up move. Now, I'm not a real chart guy, but it looks to me like there's support around maybe that 750 range here. But this one of the MJ stocks that really hasn't had the extreme valuations and the extreme excitement about it like the other ones have. Afria was my favorite. It had a fall from grace at some point, but that was my favorite to start with. Then I was playing Tilray, but mostly playing Tilray to the downside. And then I kind of went with this one because it's kind of remained scandal-free, operating a good business up in Canada, and looking for great things from this one. I was long from about 780 to 930 something, right? And then I sold it, and it spiked. It got all the way up to almost, I think, 1030s, and then came off, and then I reestablished my long around 960, and that was not a good thing to do so far because we are 70 cents off of that level. If we do look at Tilray here, Tilray has been kind of fading ever since that spike to 300. The volatility on the options has the historical volatility of the stock has come in, just incredibly, and the implied value of the options has followed that over time. I remember when this was like 200 vol, now down to 60, measly 60 vol, and the price just kind of slowly fading. And yes, it was a killer short at the 300 mark, but you had some pops in between there afterwards. But this is just a classic loss of interest, loss of volatility over time situation with Tilray. And then the one that kind of started it for all of them, Canopy Growth. Let's go back to that one here. This issue, this move at the beginning of 2019 from 25 area up to 40, that initial spike was kind of what got the ball going for sort of round 2 of cannabis issues. We had this big run up into December 2 years ago on all of these. I'm talking about this area right here, December 2018. That was a big run up on all of these. And that was actually a good moment for me personally, but this was the big run up, fall of 2018. For all of these, and they haven't. It's almost like some of them haven't, regained their glory since. This CGC hasn't taken out the highs. Of course, ACB hasn't taken out those highs. But that's been the story of the cannabis market: is that these things are volatile. They can be extremely unpredictable, and that's just kind of the way it goes. However, it comes back to sort of basic theory of the stock market, which is that I kind of think it's funny how this chart's lined up to go into negative numbers here. Look at this. It's got like 0, -1. Oh, I mean, why wouldn't they have it start at 0? Anyways, you know, it's got, it printed 0 one day in April a couple years ago. I would have bought some. I would have paid 0 for some, I think. Anyways, that's kind of funny. I don't know why it lined up like that and why it printed 0 there. But anyway, these issues, it's kind of like you need to wait until there's a bargain to buy them, and then that's the good way to go. I did not follow my own advice here. I was, you know, FOMO. I was mad at myself for selling out around the 930 range and then having it go higher. So when it pulled back again, I got back in, and so far it's gone against me. But we'll have to see. It could move higher from here. I am long this one. Let's take a look at some other issues. BA has been in the news a lot, obviously, with the plane crashes. A lot of people did try to scoop it here, and you could scoop it and then have a brief moment to where you had a chance to scalp it if you'd scooped it. Here, well, let's back this up a little bit more than this, actually. Let's go to the 20-day. You know, this Friday here, you could have bought it for $368 and sold it back out for $380. There were a couple opportunities here, but generally, as goes a lot of this kind of issues, it's creeping lower, and we will see the downgrades. They have lost some contracts. You know, this is a company. It's not like a biotech or something. They do big business. This is a huge company in its industry, and it has lost some orders, and so the stock price has gotten hurt. So if you are going to try to scoop it off the lows thing, you either have to look for a quick scalp, or you're going to be an investor and you're going to have to wait a while, I think, for it to really start to turn around this company, if ever. I think it probably will turn around at some point, but trying to scoop it here is, you know, it's questionable whether it's a scoop or not, because, like I said, they've lost orders and whatnot. Wayfair, this was one where I had established a short at some point, and it totally just ran me over. This thing gapped on earnings. It was trading about 117 before earnings, and then it just gapped up from there. You can see the gap here on this chart. You know, I established a short around this around 152, and we're kind of back to where I established it here, but really has not just faded like a lot of these other ones did. We did have a kind of a big down move Friday of over $10, but seems to be starting a little bit of a recovery here. Carvana, another one just really strong. You know, gave back a teeny bit Friday, but just has this really strong chart that we've seen. Candy. Now the Chinese car, electric car issues have been a what would you say, a thorn in my paw as a lion here. This one had this nice gap here from the $6 up to 9, up to 8 and change 9, and ever since then has been kind of fading. Earnings, total non-event, didn't move at all. I did have a little bit of a straddle on for earnings a little bit farther out, but it was very cheap, so even though it didn't move, I didn't really take much of a loss on that. I felt it was a good play because it's very cheap, and the worst that happens is nothing happens. Best that happens is you get a gap and you make some money. So that one was a little bit disappointment on earnings. Nothing really happened, but we're seeing it fade lower now. The other one, that Chinese one that people follow a lot, is this NIO, and this one also big fade. So when you're talking about electric cars and Chinese electric cars, of course, the subject is eventually going to turn to Tesla. And Tesla, you know, we've talked a lot about Tesla has had this range that it just can't seem to get out of between like the 250 area up to 380, and it's actually threatening to break to the downside here, but don't count Tesla out because it has threatened to break to the downside so many times. Look at this chart here. Okay, you see it. 1, 2, 3. Here's the 4th time it's reaching that area, and all of the oscillations within that period. And this is a pretty big period. This is from 2017. It has remained in this band here, and will it break out or not? Inquiring minds want to know, but I certainly wouldn't count Tesla out. And shorting it here, you gotta have some cojones to short this one right here, because we've seen it reinvent itself and pop back so many times. I wouldn't count Elon Musk out here. I'm staying away from this one. This is a monster of a stock to trade. So if you're going to jump in, be mindful of the fact that you can easily get run over in Tesla. Okay, let's go to Phunware. Now, Phunware, notorious for this big move up to 500, notorious for a small float. I am very impressed with the CEO of this company. Now, whether that means the company actually goes anywhere or not, who knows? But this one, small float, moving all around, has made several moves up. If we look at the 180-day chart, we see it, it got down to like 30 and then just popped to 67 in a flash. It got down to 28 and then popped to 50 in a flash just within the period of like last week. So this one has seemed to be like one where you can just jump on and it seems to pop and you could get out and have a real nice scalp. Although you have to have, once again, some ability of willingness to take risk on this one if you are going to try to make a scalp in this. I could definitely see it going from 39 to 100 in a flash, but I could also see this one being in more of the Tilray vein where it just kind of fades from 39 back to 10 with no more upside action. That is why it's a risk-reward thing with this one, and if you're willing to jump in and take some risk, you might get a reward, but it is definitely a gamble, I would say, getting along this Phunware from here. Let's look at Facebook. Facebook has just gotten battered with bad news over the past year, and it did make some sort of recovery off of this 160 area. However, most of that has been given back. It got back up to 174, but most of this has been given back. This is, it looks like a big range on this chart the way we have it here, but this is actually a pretty tight range overall. If we back it up to 3 years, that tells more of the story there, where it has had some recovery off of the low here of the 125 area. Big company, no debt, destined to be a viable business for a very long time to come, destined to reinvent itself, I believe, but in battle right now, Facebook. Let's move to Apple. Apple has shown a lot of strength recently. Look at this move here from 150 up to 187, a big up move. I feel bad for the people that puked around the 160 area here, and then it's just ripped right back up. Will be interesting to see how long this takes to get back up to that 230 area and the all-time highs here of, it looks like 232. It looks like it's headed right back up there, though, doesn't it? I mean, this Apple kind of representing the whole market in the United States, one of the biggest caps. It actually is a huge component of most of these indices. I was reading an article about the long-term trend to passive investing, where people, the average investor in the United States buys an index ETF and has, every time their paycheck comes out, a little bit is put into this just long the market ETF that owns some of Apple, owns some of Facebook, owns some of all these big names that we talk about all the time, the so-called FANG names, the Amazon, Netflix, Google. And that is becoming the way people invest more and more, is through these passive investments being long the market. Now, most people who watch this show are more sophisticated investors who are using maybe options or are sort of timing things and don't just kind of get long and hold. but that's traditionally been the way America invests, is to get long and hold. We hear these stories of 90% of traders do not, 90% of traders lose money, but that, has been refuted a lot of times. And the reality is that 90% of traders make money when the market goes up and lose money when the market goes down. And as the market has traditionally pretty much rallied, most people have made money because they're just long the market. Now, I guess it would be a matter of semantics. You wouldn't call people who are just long the market traders. You'd probably call them investors or just the normal people. Traders, they think of more like a day trader, like somebody who gets in and out of positions, in the same day. If you put it like that, or somebody who's like, this is going to be my job, I'm a trader, jumps in and says, I'm going to make enough money to support myself and my family just by trading and without another job. Yeah, those guys, there's a much bigger failure rate. But if you just talk about, anybody who has a brokerage account, do 90% of people that have brokerage account lose money? No. 90% of people that have brokerage account make money when the market goes up and lose money when the market goes down. And that's kind of the story. And, over time, investing is changing. It's not just get long the market and hang out. That has been the advice for most people, and it has worked. It has made people fortunes. It has certainly been the way that my family has prospered through the generations and been able to pass money on from generation to generation, is just getting long the stock market and hanging out. It has gone up, consistently over time. And until that changes, that will be the way most people invest. All right, so look, we've covered a bunch of different issues. If you've got one that you're interested in talking about, I would be happy to indulge you. I know my buddy was trading MU pop on earnings also. We are off the lows of December. Do we turn around and head lower now? Is there evidence for that because of the recent spike in the vol? We see VVIX now over 100. VVIX made a big move Friday, over 100. When it gets to like 120, people, or even over 100, that is a sign to people that there's trouble. There's trouble, sir. VVIX over 100. You better be careful, batten down the hatches. If you are part of that crew, we have reached that point. VVIX over 100. VVIX up another 3 today. This made a big move once again Friday, and VVIX did lead everything into this recent volatility spike. It was like 80. It bounced from like 80 to 82, 83. I guess maybe I think it might have been like Jedi Marcus on Twitter or someone else posted or reposted something saying, look, VVIX is getting up and running. And as soon as and it wasn't really running, but it was popping. And that led everything into volatility moving higher. So, I often discount VVIX as an indicator, but in this recent case, it has been an indicator. So I will follow it more closely moving forward. And we'll have to see what happens once again with the current spike. Okay, VIX right now 1767, UVXY up 164, VXXB currently 3282. So, will my prediction come true that we take out the lows, the all-time lows this summer? All-time low for VXXB, 2594. All-time low for UXY, obviously 3560. Let's see, 3504. We are $11 off the low now in UVXY. Will we make that low this summer? I'm going to say yes. We will break through 35 this summer. How quickly will it happen? I can't tell you that one. And right now, moving in the other direction, UVXY up 138 right now as we speak. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.